Have you ever been out alone on one of those nights when there isn't a ray of light anywhere except the stars overhead, not even a sliver of a moon to cast the faintest shadow? Sometimes it can be so quiet that all the sound seems to totally disappear. That's what I want to talk about this morning, stillness. Let's see what the Word has to say about it. Hi, I'm Pastor Tom, and for a long time, in fact most of my Christian life, I've struggled on and off with the challenge of hearing the voice of God clearly. There have been times that no matter how hard I tried, I simply couldn't shut out the sounds of the world. And then other times it was so quiet that I had this strong urge to fill the emptiness with the sounds of any kind, and that was usually my voice. Stillness, or being still, is one of the prerequisites to hearing from the Lord. It's an interesting word in both the Hebrew and the Greek. And in the Old Testament, the one verse we're most familiar with is Psalms 46:10. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. Be still here is the word rapha, and it literally means cast down or to let fall down. Be relaxed, to not make any effort or put forth exertion. In other words, the command is to have a trustful state of mind without any anxiety. Now in this verse, God is telling his people to be calm, to be still, and know that he, above all others, is God. That he is in charge and can be trusted to ensure that on their behalf, he will be exalted above the world. But to accomplish this, Israel had to cease from what they were doing and know, ascertain by seeing, who God is. Now, I don't know about you, but that's a challenge for me. Standing still is something I don't do very well. But just standing and knowing and standing still doesn't answer the question. How do I hear from God? Well, before we answer that, let's take a look at the same word in the New Testament, where Jesus commanded the wind and the sea. Mark 4:39. And he awoke and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. Now here the Greek word carries a very distinct and forceful meaning. Muzzle, as in muzzling a dog. It means to be dumb or to involuntarily be quiet. In other words, I order you against your will to be quiet and muzzle yourself. So now with that in mind, let's move a little closer to learning how to hear from God. Now there's a part of the process that is harder for me than being still. It's hearing. Hearing is an interesting word, and in one instance it's the same word as listening. Isaiah 49:1. Listen, O coastlands, to me, and take heed, you peoples from afar. The Lord has called me from the womb. From the matrix of my mother, he has made mention of my name. Listen in this instant means to hear intelligently, with obedience and certainty. Now it's the same word that Moses spoke to the Israelites in Numbers 9:8. And Moses said unto them, Stand still, and I will hear what the Lord is commanding concerning you. Now in this verse, stand still reflects the action necessarily preceding hearing. It's an active command. Let's see if we can bring this all together and put it to practical use. Now listening is something we do all the time, but hearing is a choice we make during the process. When we put it in context of hearing from God, we often leave the hearing part out. Oh, not necessarily on purpose, but more frequently because we fail to tune out everything else. Don't forget, the enemy doesn't want us to hear God, and he's an expert at drumming up all the worldly noise and reminding us of all our troubles. So that's where standing still comes into play. And when we find ourselves walking through one of life's valleys, we usually make a common or profound mistake. We don't stand still and listen. Just think about those times when you found yourself walking alone in the dark. What did you do? You probably started singing or whistling or making some kind of noise as you hurried along your way. Well, that's just what we do today with our prayers. We're so busy telling God how miserable we are in this dark valley and how lonely it is and how difficult it is without him talking to us that we can't hear a word he's saying. Perhaps he led us into this valley so we would listen for his voice and then hear what he's saying. Now therein lies the blessing of the stillness of the valley. If we're ever to learn how to hear God's voice, we're going to have to learn how to be still and listen. Now, one example is the PS 135:17, where the psalmist says, "They have ears, but hear not." Now, the word hear in that verse means to broaden the ear with the hand, like cupping your hand behind your ear to hear and gather in more sound. In other words, taking action in order to hear, focusing on the person who's doing the speaking. Now, that really hits home for me. Too many years around jet engines and my hearing has really suffered. So as a result, I really have to focus in on the person speaking. But that doesn't mean that I'm always hearing what they're saying. So remember, just like it was for Elijah, it is for us. God's voice is not heard in the earthquake, the wind, or the fire. It's in the still small voice. It's in a voice that requires us to sharpen our ears in order to hear it. So in the end, the answer is really something that we already know, but often fail to practice. And when you find yourself battling the stormy seas and violent winds of this world, and you're struggling to hear God's voice, remember, He is just a heartbeat away from your hearing. He will reveal the answers to all your questions and provide you with insight concerning the things that are going on in your life. Now, Paul said this better in his first letter to the Corinthians than I ever could. 1 Corinthians 2:9 and 10. What no eye has seen, nor ear heard, nor the heart of man imagined, what God has prepared for those who love Him. So, our challenge this week is the next time you find yourself struggling to hear God, just picture a very quiet night with nothing but stars overhead. Find yourself a rock to sit on and begin to listen. And as you sit there, be sure and muzzle your flesh and command it to be still. Cast it down and relax, letting your hands hang open and just wait for God to speak. Now, it's not going to happen overnight. I can tell you this. When we're still, His voice is not so hard to hear. Let me say that again. When we're still, His voice is not hard to hear. So start to listen now when you're in your next valley, and you won't have to rely on whistling to drive out fear. His voice is just a quiet heartbeat away. Now, just a quick reminder that there's a new free ebook on the website, The Path to Spiritual Maturity, and my latest published book, You're In, Are You Of, is available on Amazon. Both links are down below. So thanks once again for joining me, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do and join me here every Wednesday. And you can help me get the message out to the bride of Christ by hitting the like button, sharing, and contributing to help us get the message out. Now, if you're not a believer in Jesus and don't know who the bride of Christ is, I invite you to click on the link to Come and Believe. You'll find that page on our website where I tell you the amazing story behind Walk with God's logo. So next week I have a very special announcement to make, so be sure and be here with me next Wednesday morning. And in the meantime, have an awesome week in Jesus, and I'll see you then on Wednesday. God bless.